We were good, like really, really good. We went to the NCAA tournament every year. My freshman year, I think we went to the Sweet 16, but we were really, really good. We had NBA players on our team. Or the high school I was at in Cincinnati was pretty rough inner city school. And you won't, as a teacher, like it's crazy to say, and it's really sad to say, when you're at an inner city school, at least where I was, you won't get through a year without a kid dying. I didn't want to do a disservice to the kids that I was teaching on a day-to-day basis because it just was not for me. But it was a bad situation. Like he had to be rushed into the hospital for his to basically cut open his head. Like I think that's part of the reason I jumped from job to job is because I did not like being managed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, it's going to be a little bit different of an episode. I'm actually going to spend this next 20, 30 minutes interviewing Ron on his background, what he's gone through to get to where he is today. And he's been a teacher, he's been in sales, he's been a basketball coach, and along with that, he had a whole childhood of experiences. And like I said in the last episode, if you guys listen to that, we weren't born into the freedom that we have now, so we have very, very similar journeys to what you guys have, and you guys looking for freedom or who are land flipping and come in and want to quit their job or whatever it is. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Yeah, excited to do this, Dan. I think this will kind of give you guys an insight, whatever. Some of you guys are going to be able to relate better with my story, some with Daniel's. And I think just kind of give a perspective what we've come through. It hasn't been easy, but at the same time, it's been rewarding and the journey's been fun.
Cool. Well, let's start with just describing your childhood from an early day.
Yeah. So as a kid, I was really quiet. Like I wasn't like a outgoing kid. I wasn't overly social. I had a small group of friends, and that's how I kind of I got along really well with a small group of friends. I didn't really go outside of that, to be honest with you. Our mom was a stay-at-home mom, so it was I was kind of a mama's boy, I think, growing up. School was pretty easy for me most of my childhood. It just math I did really well at. Reading I kind of struggle with, Dan. But overall, school was pretty easy. I was just a normal kid. I didn't get in trouble. I just did well in school. Just worked hard in school. Just knew what I needed to do. Got my grades. Did some things with entrepreneurship, selling stuff on the playground, stuff like that I liked. But the main thing I did was I loved competition. In terms of like that's the only thing I remember growing up, honestly, is competing in everything. And having two other brothers, one older, one younger, is just a younger one you're supposed to beat every time, an older one when you do beat in something you're not expected to win or whatever. But everything with us was a competition, whether it was, I don't know, just everything. So that's the main things, honestly.
What about playing sports?
Yeah, so I played basketball pretty much since I was, I don't know, second, third grade. I played basketball up till when I graduated. Never really got into other sports. I played football a couple years, but I was overly small, and I just struggled. I struggled with football. Football is hard. I was young for my grade. So that's one thing when I go into like socially, when I talk about that, is my birthday's in June, and I was younger. I was 8-9 months younger. It doesn't sound like a lot right now, but when you're 10 years old and then everyone else is 11 years old, and 10 months older, like it made a big difference for me, and I did grow late. So sports, I loved basketball. I love basketball, but I always tell everyone this, I was under 5 feet going into high school. Like I was 4'11", and I'm playing against 5'8", 5'9" people.
Yeah. And then you played in high school basketball.
Played in high school, and then I went into, we can talk about after that, I went to University of Cincinnati. I was a manager for 4 years there.
What got you to, so you went to high school and you played basketball there all 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And what got you to decide to be, first off, you went to University of Cincinnati and went down the traditional route. You started in chemistry, and kind of talk about your college experience. Yeah,
so college I started to open up a little more, like socially. Bigger group of friends. I was what's called a manager for a University of Cincinnati men's basketball team. We were top 10, top 15 team most of my career there. But we did everything the players did in terms of going to every single practice, going to every single game, working every game. It was a good experience because I met so many people. I saw high-level people. I got to meet a ton of people. There are these coaches that are just grinding, and coaching is a grind, but they also loved what they were doing, and I remember that. And then just being around the players, the guys, like these guys are freaks of nature in terms of their size, their athleticism, 6'8", and they can move like a 5'10" person in high school. Like they're just different people in terms of that. But that was good. College, I met a lot of people. I tried to really meet people, not just outside, like just different people. I had a small group of friends, and that's when you go to college. When you're from a city, I went to University of Cincinnati. I'm from Cincinnati, so you know a lot of people, but I really tried to put in effort to meeting people outside of obviously your high school friends. I think that's why you kind of went outside also. Like you would have been miserable in Cincinnati. Like you just need to get away from those people that you're around all the time. And while I was at the same university as a lot of them, I really tried to like spread out and not just like be with them.
What in the your 4 years as the manager at UC, what it was 4 years, right?
Yep.
What do you think you learned from that you still kind of feel today? Is there anything specific?
Trying to think.
'Cause that's a real job for those who don't
Yeah.
know. Like you're working, you're going to practice for free, right? And I don't know if you got a scholarship or partial scholarship any of the years. So I know some managers do at times, but it's free. It's free work, and you do it, and it's work. It's like a volunteer job essentially, but you got to wake up at the same time the kids wake up and go and do all that 6 a.m., 12 p.m., all this different stuff that you're doing, traveling around, getting on the planes, getting on the buses, and going around. It is a full-time job. So if anything, maybe like some work ethic.
Yeah. So I was, so I got freshman year 100%, volunteer, everything like that. And nothing's guaranteed, like no scholarships guaranteed. I think sophomore year I got 25%. Then I ended up actually getting 40 and 50% my junior and senior year, which is awesome. Like that's a lot of money. But that being said, it was never because of that. But like you're saying, like the accountability, I think is the number one thing. If anything during a practice is missing, it's on us. If a player on the road, doesn't have a pair of shoes that they want, or they want a second pair of shoes, that's on us. If you forget jerseys, like that was a legitimate fear for managers as a basketball. Like if a jersey, you see those games where players are playing in practice jerseys, that's because the manager forgot the jerseys or something like that. So just everything, the accountability that we had for being 18, 19-year-olds was huge, I think, because like these are nationally televised games. We were bringing everything for it, and if something went wrong, it was on us, even if it wasn't on our fault.
They're the team managers, so you're organizing a lot of the things behind the scenes that people don't see when they're just watching a game. But you had some really, really good seasons there. Talk about the atmosphere, like the winning culture of some of. I mean, you guys had you were probably ranked in the top 5 at times.
Yeah,
I would imagine with some of those teams, and going in the Big East title too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were good, like really, really good. We went to the NCAA tournament every year. My freshman year, I think we went to the Sweet 16, but we were really, really good. We had NBA players on our team. Being around, like Mick Cronin was the head coach when I was there, he's at UCLA now. He is just a winner. Like it doesn't matter who he has on his team, he's gonna find a way to win. And like the work ethic he is a Western Cincinnati guy, which is like known for like the blue collar, like hard nosed type of people. Just being around that all the time, and it goes top down in any organization, whether it's business or what, goes top down. And he was the top guy in terms of basketball, and everyone kind of all the way to the manager and below us, everything kind of scaled down.
Interesting. And so you went to you won a Big East title. And you also went to March Madness multiple years as well. Did you go to March Madness?
Yeah, I went to a few years. My senior year, we went out to Washington and lost to Harvard. So I went to that 1 year. But traveling with them on planes, really cool. Like these are private jets you get to go on in terms of with these giant 6'10", 6'11" guys. So it gets really tight really fast when you start having people take up 2 and 3 seats. But just traveling with them, doing all that stuff, it's a different type of person that you're.
How intense were the big tournaments?
Big tournaments were like, you felt it from, again, like you feel it from the top down. If the head guys, not necessarily stressed, I don't want to say stress, but like we're ready to go. Like this is time.
It's the time.
Yeah, it's time to go. You need to play your best basketball. You need to be the best in March in basketball when that's when the NCAA tournament is. So like it's all building up to that, and it's intense. Like every practice, it's kind of like when Cincinnati Xavier week there, especially with Mick, because
Cincinnati and Xavier are in the same city, and it's a big rivalry in college basketball for those who don't
absolutely
know.
huge rivalry.
They're 4 miles away from each other.
Like our freshman year, we got in a fight.
Fist fight.
Cincinnati and Xavier.
Ron was out there punching people.
Yeah, and this rivalry got canceled for like 2 years or something. So like it is a huge rivalry, and that week in general, like building up to that week it's like nothing like you can imagine. Like the intensity of it.
Yeah,
losing that game's not okay.
Yeah, and they've been losing a lot. But other than that, though, that's a really good experience in terms of just seeing a competitive winning culture. I'm sure that affects your day-to-day more than you probably realize. That's really, really cool experience. Talk about after that you graduated, obviously, and what was your degree?
So I graduated with a chemistry degree. So initially I went into college wanting to be a pharmacist, and that was just a money thing. Like I see pharmacists making money. It's not some doctorate where you have to be or it's not some MD where you have to be in school for 12 years. It's a 6-year degree, I believe, 4 + 2. And that's what I went into. A couple years in, I was working at a pharmacy. I'm not doing this. So what can I graduate with fast? And I wanted to be around basketball still. Like that was a passion of mine. And that's why I did chemistry, and I knew I could get a teacher's degree, teacher's license from there. So that's what my route was to go be a high school science teacher. And more importantly to myself at that point was to be a basketball coach.
Yeah. Okay. So you got a chemistry degree thinking you're going to coach. You graduate. What's your path like now?
So I applied for this fellowship for a teaching certificate because right now at that point I just have a chemistry degree. I can't just teach with a chemistry degree, so you need to get a teacher certificate. I applied for this fellowship. It was a crazy path in terms of that application. I had to go in person. I had to go teach lessons to some random groups of people multiple times. So I'm like going around and like, this is a $30,000 fellowship. They'll pay for that, and I also get money. So the master's program that I was in would cost like 15 grand, and they would pay me 15 grand essentially as well. So I did that. I got accepted in that, which was pretty difficult. And then I did an internship that first year when I was a part of that fellowship. And that's when I was at an inner city school, which was a learning experience in itself.
Yeah. So you taught in multiple inner city schools at some points, right?
No, so I went around to some, but Withrow, or the high school I was at in Cincinnati, was pretty rough inner city school. And yeah, I did that for a full year working under another teacher as I forget what you call it.
And you were coaching?
Yeah, I was coaching Withrow then.
You were coaching freshmen.
Yeah.
Basketball. I remember you have pictures. I have pictures of around 20, 22 years old sitting down there coaching. And then after that, so you did that fellowship, and then you got a real teaching.
I got a teaching job. So then I got a full-time teaching job at another school that was middle of the pack. I wouldn't say it was it's definitely not inner city. Like with the inner city, Dan, like you won't, as a teacher, like it's crazy to say, and it's really sad to say, when you're at an inner city school, at least where I was, you won't get through a year without a kid dying. Like you just won't. In terms of like having a kid that you actually taught. I had one die, and I had one that was put away. He's still in jail today, I believe. So like you have people who, like it happens every single year, and it's sad with those schools. But going to my full-time teaching, I was coaching junior varsity basketball at this next school, and chemistry science teacher.
And you were coaching still?
Yes.
So you went from coaching the inner city to coaching?
Yes. A more affluent, but yeah, lower middle class, I would say. Yeah.
What was the difference between what you saw, like coaching? Obviously, you're the coach now, so it's different.
Yeah.
But coaching that versus the coaching in college?
The actual basketball wise?
Just the culture, everything.
Just completely different in terms of like understanding.
It's not that much different of an age. Senior,
it's not. Varsity. No, it's crazy. Like you have 17, 18-year-olds versus 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And yeah, it was just, you see it from freshmen in college though. It's very comparable to the freshmen in college.
Yeah.
But like these 17-year-olds that I was coaching in high school, like they have a lot of maturing to do. It's a completely different, like you have to baby them a little more. You got to make sure they're getting their stuff done. Yeah, it's not that much different. The basketball is obviously lower level than when you're at a high D1. But other than that, like, I don't know. I enjoyed both of them. They both had their interesting parts.
How do you break in a new freshman basketball player at a university? Like what happens? Because obviously it's a huge change. It's a huge shift. They went from being top dog to low dog. Yeah. So there's a big mental thing. How are they broken in?
It's you need to like shock them. You need to follow their ass to class. Like we would, when I coached another college down the line when I was actually a coach, not a manager, and we would follow them to class. We would just do everything, like making sure, and you need to not necessarily find reasons to get on them, but there's almost always a reason to warrant. Like they are by themselves for the first time ever. So if you just let them be by themselves, bad stuff is going to happen every single time pretty much. So you need to take reins of it. You need to shock them with the culture. We had a very strict culture in terms of what we were trying to grow them into. So that was the number one thing. It's just like holding them accountable, making sure they're accountable.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially like these guys who are the biggest guys that ever gone through their high school. Like Cincinnati's a big D1 school, and they've had really good years in national championships.
100%.
And they come and they're so good in high school. They have all these offers. They're the big dog, and then they come and like the juniors and seniors on the team are looking down at them like they're nothing now.
Yeah.
You know, they went from that to being nothing. So I'm sure there's some tension at times.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, you definitely have that for sure at times. As far as the younger guys with the older guys. They get used to it though. It's crazy, and we've talked about it in terms of like business. Like,
It's the same
like
thing,
you have freshmen come in. Like
Yeah.
you could hire a 22-year-old at college. They're a freshman in our business, and freshmen freshman to sophomore year is a huge jump. First year to second year in a business is a huge jump, and you just got to break them in and find out if it's going to work. Like, unfortunately, in college, a lot of players, it doesn't work out for a lot of players because they just don't.
Cultural fit.
Yeah, it's just not a culture fit.
Same
It's
thing in
hard.
business.
Recruiting kids is hard. Like, it is hard to find out who kids actually are, and a lot of times you don't find it out until their freshman year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, just like business, you can do all the things you want to try to get them there, but then once they're there, it's kind of in their hands.
100%.
And things happen, obviously. Going from there, so you're coaching, you're doing the teaching, and then what happened next? How long did you teach for, and where'd you go to after?
Yeah, so I did the internship a year, and I taught myself a year. And honestly, like after that point, like I wasn't a coach. I wasn't a coach. I was a teacher. And at that point, I was like, this isn't really for me, to be 100% honest. And I didn't want to do a disservice to the kids that I was teaching on a day-to-day basis. I was 100% all in when I was there, but I just needed to break ties from that because it just was not for me. Teachers, I have a ton of respect for teachers, that like more probably than I did initially, but it's hard. Like, it's a hard thing, and you need to have a passion for it to deal with some of the stuff you have to deal with. And I'm sure it's worse now than it was 8 years ago when I stopped teaching, 9 years ago when I stopped teaching. But I just knew it wasn't for me. If it's not if I'm not going to be doing it in 30 years, I'm not going to do it for another 30 minutes.
Yeah. So then where'd you go when you quit?
So I went to a company called Total Quality Logistics, and I did sales. I did inside sales for just about 2 years there. Made really good money. Was a top 1% really for my class in terms of that, in terms of like they bring in a whole bunch of people, but I was top 1%. I made good money there. I was grinding it out, cold calling. I loved it. I learned a lot of, it was just a cool environment. Like, it was a cutthroat environment for sales. Like, if you didn't hit your numbers, okay,
It's
bye.
known to be that.
100%. Yeah. You guys have probably a lot of people listening
Talk
have
about
one in their
culture
city.
shock. People go in there and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have a good training program, everything like that. They're a big company, but you need to hit your numbers. Like, once it comes to you have 3, 4, 5 months, then you need to start hitting your numbers on a weekly, monthly basis. And if you don't, like, it's a clean cut. It's nothing too complicated, honestly. It's just hit your numbers, or that's how their sales is, and that's how they've always been. It's a make it or break it.
And do you think that way they kind of managed over there has influenced you today?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I'm a numbers guy. I still am a numbers guy. Like, you got to hit your numbers, whether it's having a salesperson who's supposed to hit a certain amount of calls, or having a media person on our team who's supposed to make a certain amount of content every week. Like, just having expectations. And that's what I had there. Like, I had very clear expectations, and you just make it happen. And the mindset there, it's not an excuse thing. It's nothing like that. You don't try to make excuses. You just have to hit the numbers. So I think that has bled over quite a bit, probably more than I realized, honestly, because how cutthroat of an environment it was.
Yeah. And how long were you there?
I was there 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So you go through
2.5.
sales. So you went from chemistry teaching and basketball coach to sales at a cutthroat sales organization, making good money. And then what's your next step?
From there, I worked for my dad briefly he has a carpet cleaning company, and I did some sales for a couple months there. And that was like a bridge thing. And I was talking to my girlfriend, my wife at the time, and I always had a passion for coaching. Like, you guys hearing me talk, like, I had a passion for coaching. And I literally said, like, I want to coach college basketball. Like, that's what I loved. I wanted to coach college basketball. My girlfriend, wife at the time, was 100% all in. Like, it didn't matter where I got a job. And she said that, like, just start reaching out to people. And I was literally just probably 500 emails, Dan, I'd say, to people. And I just was asking to be a volunteer, which isn't as easy as it sounds, honestly, because like they still have to baby, like you're on their staff and they're responsible for you, even if you're a volunteer.
And it's a high demand.
100%. You have all these 22-year-olds who are coming out of college, and like they're saying, go work for free for a year.
How many people would work for companies like Google and all these other companies
100%.
for free as interns?
Yep.
Similar concept.
And I had the money to from the sales job, I had money to, I know, live for a couple years. So I was comfortable doing that. I knew the sacrifice. I knew the potential reward if everything did work out. And I found a landing spot in South Carolina, a Division II school. And I remember one day the coach emailed me and he asked like, yeah, I would love to, or we talked on the phone for a little bit. And then he asked me like when I can come down there to meet him. Then I just lied and I just said, I'm not saying lie, but I said, yeah, I'll be down in that area for another interview. I said that. I'll be down in that area for another interview, or I need to go to another interview is what I said. So I'll be down in a week or something. So we set something up and I obviously, the whole time, I don't know if he knows to this day, honestly, he thought I was going to Florida. After I went from Cincinnati to South Carolina, he thought I was going to Florida for another interview, but I literally just turned around the same day. So I went from Cincinnati to South Carolina 10 hours and went back the same day. I think I got about 7 hours back. I couldn't make it all the way, but I did that. We clicked, and then 3 months later, I moved to South Carolina. Maybe a month later, honestly, I moved to South Carolina. This was fast.
And this is going for, you've been in Cincinnati your whole life up to this point.
Yeah, I was 29.
And then you go to Coker University, which is a small town.
Yeah, 10,000 people, yeah.
What's the city called?
Hartsville,
South Carolina. So small city, southern South, and go to a university to coach basketball. What was that change like?
I was always like, I got accepted into colleges outside of Cincinnati, and I was not ready to leave home, to be 100% honest. Not actually the physical aspect of being in my mom's house or anything like that. I wasn't that. But I just wasn't ready to leave the city. And like, for some reason, maybe it was Kayla, my wife, or maybe it was something, I don't know what it was, but I was ready to go. So it didn't affect me much. Like it was a culture shock, I think, being in the South, being in a 10,000 person city. I don't know. It just felt right to me. I'd never like questioned the move ever. Was it sad? Yeah, for sure. I was there for 28 years, whatever it was, 27 years. And, but I was never like, it was a very brief thing in terms of that.
Yeah, and
I loved what I was going to chase. Right. I loved basketball.
You're playing you're coaching basketball, and then you go as the assistant. You got the assistant coaching job, correct?
Yep.
So he ends up being an assistant coaching coach at Coker University for a while. How long did you do that?
I did that for 2 years.
Talk about your experience doing that and what you learned, because obviously that's a leadership position.
Yeah. So I mean, it's me and two other coaches, our other assistant, and then the head coach. We did not have some huge staff or anything like that. It was different than Cincinnati. We're driving buses, we're recruiting, we're driving hours and hours on weekends to go see high schoolers play basketball, junior college kids play basketball. But it was awesome. Like the head coach he gave me a lot. Being a volunteer, like it wasn't like I was a volunteer and the other assistant wasn't a volunteer, which he wasn't. It was just like we were both his assistant coaches, and he had so much trust in me. I think coming from Cincinnati, we were a huge defensive-minded team when I was manager at Cincinnati. And being a manager, I wasn't just worrying about shoes and jerseys. I was learning. Like I was learning every practice in with one of the best defensive coaches in the country. So he really trusted me. Our head coach at Coker really trusted me in terms of the defensive stuff. And I don't know, I just loved it. I clicked with the players. I learned a ton how to manage players, how to juggle. I think juggling, Dan, is one of the biggest things. Is I was juggling so many darn things being an assistant. Like we were the managers for a team. We were the everything for the team as assistants, and we just tried to make the head coach's job easier. And then on top of that, we had to do recruiting, we had to do scouting, we had to do everything. And
coaching has impacted the way you manage today.
I think so, for sure. I relate back to coaching quite a bit. I understand because a lot of the kids a lot of people we hire are similar ages, honestly, like 22, 24. Not that I was coaching that old of people unless they were seniors, but it's a similar age group. I understand their mindset. I understand kind of what they're going through. And I think it's brought a lot into business.
Yeah. So you do that. How long were you coach down there for?
2 years.
You're there for 2 years, and describe your second year, because I know a lot happened and you had to step up.
Yeah, so that was actually my first year. So my first year, we were in Charleston for a game against College of Charleston, and our head coach actually had a stroke in the pregame, in our locker room pregame, which was it was obviously traumatic in terms of just the situation, but it was a bad situation. Like he had to be rushed into the hospital to basically cut open his head. Like he was rushed into brain surgery. If he was any farther from a hospital, he wouldn't be here today. But luckily we're not in Hartsville, South Carolina, where Coker is. We're in Charleston, very close to a very, very high-end hospital. and he was able to make it through that, but he was not able to coach the rest of the year. And this was probably, it was December. It was early December. So we still have 3 months more of the season. So me, myself, and the other assistant coach take on basically running the team. The other assistant was the main head coach, and I was his, obviously, first and only assistant. So I went from being like a second assistant volunteer type to like, there's a ton of responsibility. We're now playing, I'm coaching against the D1 team, and it's me and one other guy coaching against College of Charleston.
Who weren't planning for that.
No, we definitely
weren't
weren't
planning for the game, but not to be the head coach.
Oh yeah, we definitely weren't planning on. Neither of us were ready for that. We got thrown in the fire. We competed that game. We were obviously hoping and praying that Coach Merrill, our head coach, was okay, everything like that. But going forward, that whole season, it was crazy. We had players. We probably got rid of 5 or 6 players over the year that we just either they weren't fits for the team, but we cut players from the team during the season because one, they weren't players we recruited. And they were not future. A lot of them were JUCO kids that had issues, and like we just couldn't. Like they had a lot of issues. Like we lost quite a few players that year.
Yeah, which is another like really good leadership experience to kind of see that change.
It's the same thing as firing someone. Yeah, it's like this isn't, and it's different when it's a kid in college. But like the team would not have worked moving forward, keeping these
from a culture standpoint.
100%.
It's
like
a cultural thing.
It would have fallen apart very, very fast. That's what me and the assistant were talking about. Like the other assistant who was the head coach then. Is like we just couldn't keep going forward like this, and we had to make some hard decisions to keep the team moving forward.
So going from there, so you had that year where you had to step up and roll and kind of thrown in the fire. What was your, we haven't talked much about entrepreneurship. Let's start wrapping that into this a little bit. What was your first entrepreneurship role? I guess let's start back, and what part of this process and journey?
Yeah, I mean, me and you did things when we were both in Cincinnati around in our 20s and stuff in terms of flipping stuff on eBay, doing stuff like that. Going into this, like the second year at Coker, that's when you reached out about land investing. And that's when like I fully I always knew, like, I think that's part of the reason I jumped from job to job is because I did not like being managed.
Yeah.
I did not like the lack of freedom that working for someone else does. Even in a job like sales, like I went towards sales because like you get some freedom in sales typically. But obviously, like I said, that was a cutthroat place. And once I hit my numbers, I did get more freedom. I was able to work remotely or work kind of when I wanted. But yeah, I mean, you reached out about land investing. It just clicked for me, honestly. And it just made sense the way you're talking about. You had a couple of your mentors who were talking about land investing, and it just made sense. I knew my wife was pregnant at the time. It was my second year coaching, essentially for free. I made a little bit of money at Coker, but essentially for free. It was my second year coaching. I'm like, I got to make some money now. Entrepreneurship sounds amazing. Land investing sounded good from what you were saying. So we just kind of dove all in, learned what we could, took action immediately, and we built it up pretty darn fast, honestly. I remember taking phone calls on the bus, like driving a bus full of, maybe I shouldn't have been doing this, but I was driving a bus full of 10, 12, 6, 8 guys. And I remember taking calls from county. I remember it was Weekly County, Tennessee, and they called me to complain that people in the county were getting these letters.
Complaints, yeah.
And I was like talking to the person at the county about these complaints and like trying to ease their mind. Like we weren't doing anything illegal. We were just reaching out about people's land. I wasn't trying to take any land. I was just making offers on people's land, which is what we still do today. Yeah. But I remember taking those calls, and it was a lot, coaching basketball, having a family, and the land, but I never really thought twice about it.
Yeah, because you had a full-time job plus more. Like you were recruiting on the road, doing all that, driving, going to games, coaching.
Coaches don't work 40 hours.
And then family. Yeah, it's not a 40-hour job. It's much, much more than that, the way they're doing it. Talk about how like the entrepreneurship and coaching align. Like you were a coach full-time, and then you go into entrepreneurship, and it's kind of similar roles almost in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them, you get kind of like, you have a lot of responsibility in terms of like freedom of doing stuff, freedom, like what do we need to do to move something forward? You're obviously managing people in coaching and in entrepreneurship if you have employees. So I think that just a lot of it's just the work ethic, honestly. Like I said, like it was not 40-hour weeks coaching. It was 60, 80-hour weeks, and it was Thanksgiving. It was Christmas Eve practices. It was everything. Like when you could imagine you don't want to be somewhere else other than your house, I was somewhere else other than my house. And I would come home and I would price mail and I'd do that stuff. And it just felt like something else. Like it didn't feel like it never felt like I was doing too much, like even with the land, which is another full-time job in itself. But I think just the work ethic of it kind of intertwined really well.
And up to this point, though, you talked about some other entrepreneurship things you've done in the past. You owned real estate by this time as well, a little bit, right?
Yeah, me and you bought a rental property in Cincinnati. I don't know when it was, but we bought a rental property, a salon slash apartment, and that was maybe my only piece of real estate before getting into land. I think maybe I had one other apartment building.
Yeah. Okay. So you had one,
and I bought my house in Hartsville.
And the reason you got into land is because the money and the freedom that you saw.
Yeah, I think I just wanted something, honestly. It was entrepreneurship. I wanted, whether it was land or something else, I was going to find something entrepreneurship. I just think most entrepreneurs, like it would have came, I think, at some point. And I would have realized whether it was, if I had to get another job in between after coaching and between my next entrepreneurship journey, whatever it was. But land just made a ton of sense. And the margins and the time I could put while I was coaching basketball and still make money in land was very, very
You can make a lot of money for not
100%. Yeah, I was working 70 hours, legit 70 hours every single week with basketball, and I knew I could still make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 on land.
Yeah, exactly. And up to this point, I'd been doing a lot of research on land and knew that I wanted to get in it, and I saw you wanted the money, and we kind of formed that partnership between us to start the business, work together, and kind of partner up, which a lot of people also do in the community. Talk about like the first 6 months or so of land investing, because now you're doing basketball, you're coaching, you're doing all this stuff. Talk about the first 6 months or so of your entrepreneurship journey.
It was a grind. Like, it was constant learning, constant adjusting. I think, and looking back, and I know I did this, I probably let my foot off the gas in terms of the basketball a little bit. And it was a weird time, honestly, with all that. And I wish I handled that a little better, because there was two things that were a lot. But I even had a talk with the head coach. I'm like, my wife's pregnant. Like, I wanted to finish that season. I would finish as strong as I possibly could. I was doing all my responsibilities, but like that, it was a little different than the first year when I was over the top. Like, I was everywhere. I was doing everything. And I think I kind of let it slip. Like, sometimes when you try to do two things full, like you kind of half one thing. And I don't want to say I halved it or anything like that, but it was difficult in terms of the balancing, because I knew what I wanted in land. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want, Dan, is to never work for someone else.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyone who's done land investing and had a 9 to 5 probably felt the same way at some point.
Yeah, and you try to,
especially once you start seeing the money.
100%.
And you had a family coming with very little income.
So I was living in Hartsville still, obviously, where the university is. I had a house. It was a small mortgage, nothing crazy. We had a son, and then we had a daughter on the way. So it was like, and I made $0 my second year. The first year when our coach had a stroke, I made $5,000. This is 100% accurate. The AD came to me like, since your head coach won't be there, like, we'll give you guys $5,000 this year. I'm like, sure. I was excited about it, honestly. And I was working 70 hours a week. And the next year I didn't get paid a dime. Literally $0, and it's just like, it wore on me. I think it definitely took a toll for sure. And like, I knew what I didn't want to do, and I was running away from the idea of having to work for someone else, going to do another sales job, going to do whatever. I did not want that.
Getting ahead of that, yeah, especially with the family coming.
I had a time. It was a ticking. It was like there was a timer on this. Like, there was a time when if we weren't making enough money in land, I would have to get a job.
I mean, yeah, and there comes the point, and then you start seeing land do well and start flipping some properties. Which I want you to talk about a little bit, like our first 6 months, not balancing the two, but our actual first 6 months doing it, some of the obstacles we came on. But yeah, there's a lot once you start making money and you're in something else, and you slowly start pulling the foot off the pedal, like you said, a little bit. I mean, I was in a sales role and felt that. I mean, you start tripling, quadrupling, 10xing your income.
Yep.
And you look at things a little bit differently, and it happens.
Yeah, it's impossible to kind of. And it's just communication. That's what I focus on, was communication with my head coach, so I can just be as transparent with him as possible. But those first 6 months it was a grind. Like, we made a lot of expensive mistakes. We never doubted. That's the one thing, like, And Daniel and I bounce things like if one of us are feeling down about something, like the other person picks it up, and we really bounce things off really well in terms of that. And kind of if one pulls down, the other picks up. But overall, like our mindset towards this business never wavered. There are tons of mistakes with mail. I remember we sent mail and put the wrong addresses on it. So we had a bunch of random people getting addresses or offers for land that they didn't own. So just a ton of mistakes. We sent a lot of mail without much success at one point. Like we sent a lot of mail without much success. Then we've made like 10 grand on a deal, and then 20 grand on a deal, and then 30 grand on a deal. And at that point I was thinking about either moving back to Cincinnati or moving to Florida. I remember Daniel called me. He's like, I think you can afford coming to Florida now. That's what because this is when he just moved to Florida. And you said that to me because I was thinking about Florida or Tampa or Cincinnati, essentially, or moving to a nicer spot of South Carolina. And I remember Daniel called me, and I think it was the Adams County, Ohio land with the that Matt sold, and it was with the horse on it. And Daniel called me like, yeah, I think you can move to Florida now because we made 30 grand on a deal.
I don't remember that. That's funny though. We do one deal. That's how we were though. Like all we needed to do is like, one deal is so exciting. Our first property ever we bought and sold for $5 and sold for 15, and we thought it was like a home run. But it's cool like seeing the journey pan out. Let's get into what's next for you. So we started the land investing online and the educational platform and doing all that now. And how's that transition been?
I love it. Like I really like helping other people. I like partnering with other people on deals. Building the brand around it, I think is really cool. Like the community, the people we have come to our community, the people that join our program week in and week out just impress the crap out of me. Like their vision, their understanding of what this business is what I love so much seeing. Like there are some, and then they know what they want also. Like a lot of people, at some point, like you'll have people who come in, like they don't really understand and they just expect things to be given. But like these people right now, like it is really, really cool to see the types of people we have coming in our community. And like, you just know the future with them. Like they are going to be leaders in the land space and they're going to take on huge, huge deals. They hear us talk about $1 million deals and they don't waver. Like they don't think twice about it. Like, yeah, that's possible. They know it's possible. Other people, they hear $1 million deal and like, they will just like, that's not possible for me.
Yeah.
There's a big mindset, huge. I think a ton of people are coming in with a very wide mindset in terms of what they can do in this business.
I completely agree. Yeah. That's one of the most rewarding things for me as well as, if you guys listen to the last episode, I guess, are you stopping here? Like, is land investing the future, or do you have future plans, or what's your vision for you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to invest in land because I understand it. Like, I think if you go away from what you know and understand, it's stupid. Like, I think people who...
Best ROI you can get.
Yeah, if I, like, why... I'm not saying I'm going to only flip land for the rest of my life, but I'm going to always invest in land if I can find good deals, because a couple of things we know how to do from what we do is how to get land under market value and how to evaluate land.
Yeah.
And there are very, very few people in the country that can do this, as far as have the education to do it. Yeah, I 100% plan on that, building other companies, building a team. I've really enjoyed building a team around us, building a media team around us, building our transaction coordinators amazing. All of our team's amazing. Hiring people overseas, bringing those people in, and building the culture around our company. Like it's multiple companies. Like we have Land Investing Online, we have Apke Land, and then we're building a tech company right now. And they all intertwine with each other. And just the idea of building companies is exciting to me.
Awesome. What I don't have anything else really to add here. Did I cover everything all right on your life, your journey?
Yeah, I think so.
What about what advice do you have for people who are stuck and don't know where to go, or they just don't know what first step to make? Someone who just feels stuck in life and they're frustrated.
And I think we kind of said this last episode. It's just like you just got to make a step forward. Like, I don't know. It's just too many people think too much about little things and then don't move forward at all. Overthink it. Like if you want to start a podcast, get a mic and start a podcast. So many people are like thinking about their podcast name and their this, that, what are they going to do if this happens? There's not that many factors in a lot of stuff in life. And I think that's why so many people, like, unfortunately, we have people join our program who don't do anything. Yeah. Like that's the sad truth of it. Like, I don't know if it's 20%. I don't know if it's 10%.
Yeah. And then people ask us our success rate. And I'm like, well, I don't know of the people who, a lot of people don't take action.
The people who take action are very, very successful in this business. a lot of people view them buying a course as taking action. It's not. It's
No,
just how
that's the start to take action. You still got to execute on the plan.
100%. And that's the biggest thing,
funny.
guys, is you just got to move the ball forward every day as much as possible, and get started. Like that's the thing Hormozy says is like, you don't really know what you need to do. Like you just got to do something sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're not going to know how to flip land without making some mistakes. Like you cannot go start a business without making mistakes. It's going to happen. We made a huge financial mistake with the land portal, but it's fine. Like it's just in terms of the data we didn't buy. We spent $50,000-$60,000 and we just made the wrong decision. It cost us, but the advantage is changing that decision fast.
Yeah. In time, like time.
Yeah. Time. Like, okay, we made a mistake. Let's just change our route and let's move forward.
What's your favorite show of all time?
Favorite show of all time? Probably Breaking Bad, I think.
I thought you were going to say Dexter.
Oh, I like Dexter too. Probably Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad and Dexter I really like. Recently, I love Arrested Development, The Office. Mm-hmm. Those are good ones. The Office, it's not on Netflix anymore though, so I can't watch it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to throw that in there to be a little bit different. Hope you guys learned from this episode and learned from Ron's story. As you saw, he went from being a chemistry teacher to sales, to basketball and as a volunteer, and then to land, and now obtaining that freedom. And now he's educating people and starting a software company and all that stuff. So definitely it wasn't given to you, Ron. That's what, like, some people come in and comment and think everything's kind of given. This was earned, just like
Daddy's
selling
money.
our first properties. Yeah.
Daddy's money.
As always, guys, thank you so much for joining. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It really helps drive our mission forward. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.